Hello, thanks for dropping in. I have had a rough day. Well, yesterday was a rough day. I think it was yesterday. Maybe it was the day before when it came to recording. Because, oh, first, and I'd always heard this was possible, I was copying things off of, hang on one sec here. There we go. Off of an iPad. And I'm sure I put copy not cut. I always put copy not cut. Anyway, somehow the two files that I didn't. They didn't. They got midway through and then something went weird. And I've had this happen before, but never have I had it happen that then the files are just gone. So maybe I accidentally hit cut. I don't know. Anyway, it was distressing. So I said, okay, well, you know what? I can redo this because look, here I've got a monitor to go with the Amiga 3000. So I could test it. So I can do this. Anyway, so I came up, kind of did what I did before, kind of, sort of, maybe a little bit. And then I found, when I had finished, that my little wee microphone that I usually have pinned on me, the little green light wasn't on. Which means somehow it had been turned off or disconnected, or I don't know what happened. But it wasn't. And then I checked the video, which was some 20-some minutes long, no sound, not a word. Like, oftentimes I've used this without a microphone, and it ends up being, you know, I pump up the sound as much as I can, I talk as loud as I can, but I don't have that loud and natural voice. But anyway, when this thing is in, or the thing that goes on the iPad is in to let it receive whatever's going on with this, the regular microphone doesn't work at all. So there's nothing. So I did 3 videos. They were all ruined. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to pin this thing right on this Amiga 2000 here. Oh, that might be a mistake. No, I don't think no, I'm not turning this on now. So it'll be fine. I was thinking the fan will overpower the sound. Or the microphone. Anyway. See, this is life. And you know what? I always do copy and paste because sometimes things don't copy right. And then you can always do it again. What happened, I'm not sure. Anyway, I will find out when I try this again. But anyway, I see the little green light is on. So nothing can go wrong. I hope. All right, back to the Amiga 4040. So, as I said earlier in another video, I have been to the basement. And indeed, I have found a monitor that will work. This is a 1084. Now, they made many versions of the 1084, at least. Well, then there was the 1084S, but they looked all different than this. This looks like, excuse me, the original Amiga monitor, except it just had the Amiga with the logo there, which I like better. Maybe I'll try and get a sticker for that. Actually, I rushed an Amiga monitor to New York. Or maybe it was not New York. Eventually, it ended up in New York because it was an original and it worked and it was wonderful and in glorious shape for a special project, something to do with the New York Times and Andy Warhol, I believe. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, so yes, I've been to the basement. I found this monitor. I had the cable for this monitor. There are different cables that go with the Amiga and different monitors. This one uses kind of like a joystick connector on the back, and of course the typical 23-pin DB connector, not 25, 23. So I was able to test this. Now, do I have a keyboard for it yet? Which goes into This funny port? No. I've not hooked up sound because I don't. One thing, of course, I did find in here is that there. Haha. That's the toaster. It's in there. It is indeed. So, what I can do now is I can turn this monitor on. And of course, it goes on very easily. But as you'll see when I try and turn it off later, a lot of the switches on a lot of the monitors, well, there's a spring in there, and sometimes they go a little wonky. I recently saw an ad for another Amiga 4000. I pondered, still pondering, still torturing. And he said the monitor, you got to take, it's like a business card, just a little bit of it, and just stick it in to hold it in. Anyway, these things happened. I don't seem to remember ever having a 17 or 1701 or 1702 like that, but a lot of these others things happen. Mostly, if I remember rightly, that kind of thing happens on the 1084, the 1084S, etc., 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 etc. Anyway, so we're all plugged in. I've done this before, but you haven't seen it. I'm going to turn this on. And it will make appropriate noises, and I can hear the hard drive inside, and the screen will do things eventually. And there it is. Now, of course, because I don't have a mouse and I don't have a keyboard, I can't move the pointer down so I can see how much RAM this machine has or anything else. And I can't open any of the drawers. I cannot. I did. It's funny how sometimes some things work. I found this other demo, which I think you have seen in black and white on the big monitor running in here. It's called a probe sequence demo. But in the last video, which you'll never see, I tried to run it. It had worked on here, and it came up in color. I guess that was on the other ones, but on the last one, it didn't want to run. And of course, I don't have. Oh, hello. Oh, we can see. There we go. I don't have a way to do this nicely, so I will turn this off. And I will put the disk in because it boots off the disk, and I will wait an appropriate amount of time. And what is an appropriate amount of time? Well, I certainly wait till the hard drive is done, and then I ponder, and I push the button. Now, this may or may not work. I don't know. The last time I tried it, it didn't. I don't know. But it certainly, it was nice to see when it did work that it did work. Another thing I mentioned in that video is the 1084, as well as the Amiga monitor, and I think there was one called the 2002. Maybe they did that because it was being, oh, look at that, it was being used on the Amiga 2000. Maybe that was the plan. I don't know. I don't know where they got 1080. I don't know. Or 1084. I don't know. I don't know what they do. Anyway, there are, if you're hooking up an Amiga and you think there's something wrong, do keep in mind there's a switch here so that this monitor could be used on a 64 or a VIC-20 or 128, or I guess a plus. Oh yeah, well, that didn't work. Oh, that's unfortunate. It was kind of a cool demo thing. Oh well. Here's the drive light off. It is. Now I will pop this disc. And I will turn this off. Put this demo back into the box. Wait an appropriate amount of time. And turn this on. Here's another thing I found recently. It's my, I like to say it's my Commodore 64 keychain, But this could be a VIC-20 or a Commodore 16. It could be. I looked with my special glasses, which are in high intensity magnification, which I really, if I look at, like, if I look up, I can't really read much of anything. But if I keep them at my end of my nose, and I bring this in close, it does say Commodore, but it doesn't say 64, and it doesn't say VIC-20, and over by the power LED, it doesn't say anything. And I'm sure I picked this up at one of the World of Commodore things, and I probably picked up more than one. I probably went back to the booth more than once, although I don't know where other ones are at the moment. And of course, people like Paul Higginbottom and David Berezowski and others who knew who I was would probably try and chase me away when I tried to gather up things like this, as well as brochures. Those were the days. Those were the games we played. So, we turn on the 4000 again and see that it is happy and working. Anyway, so on here, you have to look at under here. There's a variety of buttons, not buttons, but dials under here. And on the bottom of the door are the instructions as to what they are. So in this switch here, like if you hook up your Amiga and you think, oh yeah, I'm great, and then nothing comes up and you think your Amiga's dead or your monitor's dead, you could have it in one of the other two positions. One is for composite and the other is for separate. And of course the separate is for the 64 and the 128. But still, if you don't have the cable to do that, you can run it through composite. And the other thing is, way on the back, there's another switch. And it probably won't foul, I can find it, probably won't foul up, there we go, things that you won't see things, but they might not look quite right. Like, maybe that's for black and white, so everything looks kind of ghosted a bit. Ah, that's better. So, keep that in mind if you're hooking something up and trying something. That you do check the switches. I'm going to put this up because it just looks better like that. So yes, check the switches. I guess similar to in the modern day when you're using HDMI, go to the menu, make sure you have the right device selected. So I will continue to hunt. And the thing is, this 4000, I did in the other one plug it in and try it. Didn't do anything. It kind of does a little bit of something, but not much of anything. Nothing comes up on the screen. It's, I fear, been battery toasted, but I don't know. There could be something else wrong in there. There's only bunches and bunches of parts. It's funny, I was watching a show a while back called Restoration Garage, and it's about a place in Bradford, Ontario that's not far from here. And this one guy was talking about, inside of an engine and millions of parts moving all together. Millions. Well, there aren't millions of parts inside an engine. There's lots, but there's not millions. And there's not millions of components inside any of these, but there's lots. I would dare say there's more components inside something like this than there is inside the engine of a car, where you have pistons and rings and valves and tappets and main crankshafts and camshafts and things and stuff. I don't know how many parts there are inside like a 4, a 6, or an 8-cylinder engine, but there's not millions. But yes, they're all working together in synchronization, unless of course the timing belt snaps, and then you're screwed. It's funny, from what I understand, the industry has finally gone back to timing chains, and I'm glad, because I really think the whole industry, of all the people that make cars, should be sued, because basically putting in a timing belt, oh, it's quieter. Who cares? It means that after a certain time, if you don't get it dealt with or changed, your car goes kaboom. Although not in flames, kaboom, it's ruined. And that kind of, really, it's planned obsolescence. Or if it's not planned obsolescence, it's, hey, we can make another bunch of money off of them. when they have to come in and replace that stupid belt. It's quieter. But nobody cares if it's quieter. Anyway, enough about cars and things and such. But that show I spoke of, Restoration Garage, I quite like it. I haven't seen nearly all of it because it keeps going from one network to another. But it is interesting. It is. Some of the things I think, like a lot of these reality shows, are carefully scripted, which means they're not reality. Like there was a time this guy was getting this replica, I think it may have been a 57 Chevy or something done, and in he comes, and then they've got these things, wheels and stuff on that he thinks, oh, that's too big, that's too whatever. And the next time he comes in, they've got these tiny little things on there, and he's like, oh, please, they would never do that. That's just anyway. So I think some of the drama was indeed manufactured, which I suppose in some ways isn't reality, but in some ways is reality. Because there are people in the world who like to create drama. So, back to the Amiga 4000. This is about all we can do right now is look at it and say, oh, look, we have a RAM disk, we have work, we have a toaster, we have workbench, we have a shell. For those who don't know, the shell basically means it opens up the command line interface so that then you can type things in and check directories and do other things, which of course with a lot of things you can just drag and such. So anyway, I'm assuming that somewhere in here would be the stuff to make the toaster do its thing with all the stuff that was gloriously bestowed upon me by a wonderful, wonderful couple. I did not get any toaster documentation as of yet, but I understand we have not spoken about what else they might have, but I suspect there will be. So at some point, I'll have to dig into this. The other thing, of course, I will do is I will take this and open it up and have a look, and take this and open it up and have a look, and maybe swap some things in and out to see if I have some bits and pieces and parts and such that are in fact good that could have a go. Now the other thing, of course, is I did meet a fellow at the World of Commodore who had effectively and successfully fixed battery damage on his Amiga 4000. Maybe I need to seek him out and see what's what. People have told me lemon juice is a good thing to clean up the mess. Rudy of Ruby's Retro Linto says it should be rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip. Like this machine here, sorry microphone, this machine here does have battery damage, but it still works. But due to the corrosive nature of whatever it is that leaked out of the battery, I do want to get it off the board. So at some point, I will have to take everything off, take the cards out, take the board off of there. I think there might be a shield on the bottom, and go at the remnants of the leaky battery. I so wish they had not done that. So many Amigas have been lost because of leaky batteries. So many. So many. Anyway, so can't really do much besides look at this and say, ooh, look, it works. And I'm not really in the mood to do a whole long video at the moment in case everything screws up. But I do see that my little microphone is on, so hopefully it is talking to the iPad and you can hear me. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else remarkable that I did in the last videos that I have not done. I'm sure I tested some more discs, but that's not terribly exciting. And I really didn't get a chance to run anything. I did. Ooh, here's something I could do. Could I? I could, I think. Just a moment. Let me set this keyboard down. I did find in the basement an external disk drive. Let's turn this off. I found an external disk drive for the Amiga. It's a 1010. it could use a little cleaning and tidying, but, couldn't we all? So it would plug in here. It would, and I did not do this before, so maybe I will. I'll turn this back on, just as another way to test and see if this 4000, which I'm sure is fully functional, is indeed fully functional. Because one of the reasons I brought this up is I had two other external drives, not by Commodore, for the Amiga, that I couldn't get anything to read on. So that's, when you have two, you think, well, is this a case of the drive is bad, or is there something wrong inside the machine that is not letting it work? So, best way to tell is to have another drive that works, and pop it in and say, oh, look, it works. So, that's good. It came up, and see that just says the 500. This is the Amiga 500 demo that will not work. I know it won't work on this machine, so I won't bother with it. I will not. Anyway, this was a vital piece of equipment back in the day, because most Amigas, like the 1000 and the 500, came with one disk drive. That's all it had, one disk drive. And to copy a disk, or even load some programs, or do other things, it was endless disk swapping. And of course, you're not supposed to take a disk out of the Amiga when the light is on, but when you're doing these endless disk swapping things, I'm probably getting frustrated because every 2 seconds it's saying, put this disk in, put that disk in, put this disk in, put that disk in. You can cause damage if you're too quick on it. And by getting frustrated, you can do that. But an external drive was glorious. And, of course, two of them was even more glorious. When I had a computer store in Florida, I remember there were lots of people who liked to use these fast copy programs. But see, even back then, there were viruses. And so at the club meeting, we would have a club disk. That was the Sarasota Manatee Amiga Users Group, otherwise known as SMOG, which is also a dragon from a well-known thing that suddenly escapes me. It'll come back to me. Anyway, so I said, no, we really shouldn't use the fast copiers because they don't have virus detection, and I had a Workbench disk that did have a virus checker thing, and really, anyway. But anyway, so one day, of course, I had not won the battle yet, and we sent out, people brought disks in, we copied them, and they all went home with viruses. So I said, well, that's enough of that. So I had a bunch of Amiga 1000s and external drives. So I would just bring them all, set them up, and people were always saying, well, the fast copies are faster. Well, when I had 5 like Amiga 1000s connected and 5 external drives, and I also I had a setup where I had one monitor, and I could switch between the thing, and I had let me think about this. I think I also had, because the Amiga 1000's connector was kind of like a phone connector. No, you know what? Maybe it was a mouse thing. I don't know. I seem to remember I had two switch boxes, one for the monitor and one for either the keyboard or the mouse. I don't remember now. Anyway, but I would always make sure we had 5 fresh copies of the new disc, and I could put in the discs of people that were members of the club, and very quickly assure that, okay, I got them, yep, it's good, yep, it came up, and issue the commands, boom, 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 and copy the 5 discs, and check them, and of course also it had virus checking, and make sure, and if something didn't copy, try again. If somebody's disc just wouldn't work, just say, yo, your disc isn't working, and probably they'd give me another, or if not, I'd just say, okay, well, here, I got another disc, and da 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 da. And we never, ever, ever spread a virus again. Ever. So, external drives, great things. Now, of course, the Amiga 2000, such as this, has room for 2 drives in it, which is beautiful. Beautiful. Because as much as the external drives are wonderful, generally the Commodore cable wasn't really long enough, and it made it difficult. The cable on these other 2 drives that I have here is longer, but of course the drives aren't working. So, but I'm sure, if they were working, let me just see if I can have a box of discs here. And on the box, under the discs, are these disk drives with the golden image drive. Lovely. Ooh, I got, I think, on-off switches. Ooh, they are stuck. Ooh, don't force it. Anyway, the cable was, I would just guess, twice as long as that one, the 1010. And sometimes, yeah, length matters. Sometimes. Also, these things had nicer, these things have tiny little things you had to use a screwdriver on. These things had bigger things you could easily twist in. Because, of course, especially with these drives, and I guess anything, it's always best to secure things in the machine. Because, if one of these things gets a little tweaked, information does not flow. So it is best if you're using something forever and ever and such that you properly screw it in, secure it in, and make sure that it cannot get tweaked and cause you grief and misery. Kind of reminds me of when you have a joystick plugged into one of the ports on the 64, and if you have the fire button, the automatic fire button turned on, or if the thing is leaning, or something leans up against it, it can do crazy things to the keyboard, which can take many people sometimes a great amount of time to figure out what the heck is going on here. Anyway, so yes, it is best if you're able. Oh, even I'm looking at the joystick ports. Well, not the, but the mouse and the joystick ports on the side of this. They even too have ways to screw into. I don't believe that's the way on the 64, and I can't see on this 2000 if they are. But yes, if you are doing something and it's like a permanent installation, then make it permanent. Takes not long and can cause you or save you so much stress and anxiety when something goes squirrely because the connector went. And I suppose there's also the chance it could cause some kind of short circuit. But not likely. But possibly. By the way, for those that don't know, there was a special printer cable for the Amiga 1000. It was for the Amiga 1000. It looked like a cable that would go on like an IBM and everything, but it wasn't. So because there was something, the pinout was different, and I think if you use a regular IBM cable on an Amiga 1000 with a parallel printer, you would fry the printer because there was voltage where there shouldn't be. So just keep that in mind in your gatherings of things and doing things and other things. You got an Amiga 1000 and you think, oh yeah, that cable will be fine. Just be really careful. Really careful. Well, there's not much at this moment that I can do. So I think I'm going to turn this off. Oh. Maybe that'll help the sound quality a bit, having that turned off. And I think that maybe I possibly have a keyboard to go with this 4000 that went with this 4000. But I'm pretty sure that either I never looked at the end where you would plug it in, or if I did, it just said, oh yeah, looks like the same as the 2000. So I'm not sure. But once again, do I know where it is? Well, no, of course not. Life. So, enough for now. I'm hoping that the recording has sound, and I'm hoping that when I go to copy the recording over, that it copies. And it's probably 2022. It may not be by the time you watch this, but I think this is going to go live on Christmas Day. Woohoo! So, if you do celebrate Christmas, I hope you have a good one. And if you celebrate something else, I hope you have a good one. And if you don't celebrate anything, still, I hope you have a great day. Indeed. So, keep sticking on the ice, and we'll meet again. Hopefully you see this video. Hopefully it won't get ruined like the other three. Hopefully. Until we meet again, bye for now. Bye. Bye-bye. And now I will reach over. Oh, firstly, we are no longer on the air. I'll turn off the main power. This will turn off a big light. And the iPad will suddenly jump and say, whoa, what happened to the light? Ah! But it will adjust. It will. And then I will pick up this little microphone and see that, in fact, the green light is on. This is good. And I will rise, make my way to the iPad, stop the recording as I look around the room and go, oh God, what have I done? What have I done? I need to get working in this room. I do. Basically what I need to do is gather up the stuff that's sitting around, probably put some of it in boxes, and then stack those boxes along with others that I have to move in here to the box room. And who knows, I may end up not recording in here anymore soon. I might not. I might find somewhere else more suitable. Because I got too much stuff. I got lots of boxes. And I'd rather have them contained. That is the plan. But remember, as Sid Bolton said, or he wore a t-shirt that said, it's not hoarding if you're organized. Well, I have however been trying to get organized, and I'm somewhat organized, but I need to get more organized. And also, I need to go through things and figure things out and put some things up for sale. So stay tuned, and if you're looking for anything, don't hesitate to write and ask. Sometimes it takes me a while to find things, because I don't know where everything is. But I'll get there. I hope. And as I gaze around here, yeah, I could have things stored much more efficiently in here. So I got to get to that. If I'm really brave, I'll record some of that. If not, I won't. All right, I'm getting up. Oh. And we'll see you again. Bye for now.